Hello, hello, JJ DiGeronimo here. I'm so excited to be with Cathy Williams. As you may have noticed, I had some technical difficulties, but StreamYard and I are getting better at figuring out the new version. So thank you, Cathy Williams, for joining us today.
Oh, so nice to be here, JJ. Thank you.
So I'm really excited to get into this because I feel like so many women are in relationships or situations where they're detaching themselves from their inner knowing. And, I feel like our bodies hold our messages, but oftentimes we sidestep that or we have been taught not to listen to that. So, how has feeling our feelings come forward for you in regards to body based methods of emotional experiences?
I think it is such a common experience for women who live in a Western society to learn ways to override our emotional experiences. Whether we have been told that expressing emotion, we are being too much, or where we don't feel safe enough to feel our feelings, or we are put in a position where we might sense that something is off. We might sense that something doesn't feel right. And our body is communicating something to us, signaling something to us, whether that is that gut pull, that tightening in our chest, that little tingle on the back of our neck. We all have these little signals that our body is communicating at any one time. But we have been taught to override that, to preface the analytical, overanalyzing, logical mind and put that on the pedestal rather than our intuitive felt sense that might not necessarily make sense to other people or be convenient for other people, but that is our intuition. And when it comes to being in relationship, I feel like there are so many different factors that are competing for our attention here. We want to feel worthy. We have a strong desire to feel love, to feel connection, to have that sense of belonging. And it was my experience of, I guess, being quite naive and innocent in entering a relationship where my self-worth wasn't great. My self-esteem wasn't very strong. And I really set myself up for entrusting, very vulnerable detailings of my heart to someone who I was entering an intimate partner relationship with. And I didn't follow the signals of my body where, I was hesitating a little bit and I was like, oh, can I actually trust this person? Is there safety here? Is there enough evidence that I can trust this person with this part of myself? And instead, what I did was I basically, laid out all of my insecurities and vulnerabilities on a glorious buffet platter for this person, and was heavily taken advantage of, that naivety and that trust and that innocence. And in hindsight, I can see and feel and remember all of the ways in which my intuition and my body was speaking to me in those moments. My body wanted to pull back. I had seeds of doubt come in where I was like, oh, I don't feel good here. There was a really strong sense of feeling anxious and wanting to protect myself. And in those moments, I felt them, but I allowed my intellect, my mind to override them and be like, no, give this guy a chance. And, oh, there's so much potential here. Or, oh no, like let him compliment you. And all of these ways that I talked myself out of listening to my intuition. And ultimately, I was showing my intuition. I was, there was all these mini microaggressions where I started to betray my intuition and slowly let his words become the stronger narrative rather than my own inner voice and inner knowing.
I know people do this all the time, and sometimes it happens slowly over time. Sometimes it's right out of the gate. But let's jump forward and we'll jump back. But tell us the work you do today, because I feel like we could talk about the situation for a while, but tell us how you have used your leaping pad of learning and insight to really help women now.
Mm. So my business is called Intuitive Self, and I named it that because it is this through line of all of the ways that we can return to self and foster that relationship with our intuition through the body, through movement art therapy, and through finding ways to express the feelings within, make meaning of them, learn ways that we can feel safe in our body again, and be able to regulate ourselves so that we can actually have a really strong sense of self, a really strong relationship with our intuition, and use that to navigate life with. So I work online mostly as a movement expressive art therapist. I'm a community facilitator and trainer of how to connect with our body intentionally in this way. And what I loved about, the title of our connection today, Feeling Our Feelings, that is one of the biggest things that I advocate for. So instead of going straight to feeling something that might be uncomfortable or that we're not familiar with, instead of going straight to the analytical mind of wanting to problem solve or bypass the feeling or bypass the emotion, I support women to actually sit in their feelings, learn how to support themselves and regulate themselves to feel strong enough to feel those feelings that might be overwhelming or uncomfortable or scary. And I know that myself. And learn ways that we can actually get curious about what's happening within us, how to be with that emotion. What does that emotion want us to know? How can we express it in healthy ways? And then learn to transform it so that it doesn't bog us down, it doesn't make us catatonic or unable to function and show up in the many roles that women need to show up in our lives, but actually supports us to get a deeper understanding of who we are and how we are responding to any given situation. If our body has a particular emotion that's rising, let's get curious about that and see what's there to be known.
I love that, because even when you're talking to friends and they're describing a situation, they'll tell you something. They may tell you how they're feeling about it, but then they logically try to talk themselves in or out of it without really just being with the emotion. Like, I was scared. I was hurt. My feelings were hurt. I didn't feel good. That hurt, whatever it
Yes.
is, they try to blow by it because they're like, oh, I'm fine. I'll figure it out. I don't need to be upset. And I think a lot of times when we do that too often, we get to a point where we make ourselves sick, or we get in situations where we just all of a sudden can't take it anymore, and we implode or explode, either which way.
Yes. And it's this, I understand that fear of not wanting to go into the feeling because we might, fear of overwhelm, fear of collapse. It's really uncomfortable to be with some of these emotions and these feelings, and we want to go straight to solving the problem. But what I really advocate for is, our feelings are there, they're messengers, they're here to tell us something so that we can gain perspective on a situation, that we can really know how we're feeling about something and act from an aligned place and not ignore those signals and those messages.
So say we're in a situation, say we just get in a disagreement or something happens and like there's some kind of exchange of some sort. and all of a sudden we get an emotion, right? Comes over us. Maybe I feel slighted. I don't feel good. This doesn't work for me. Why am I doing this? Whatever. What is like the first step? Should we stand there and sort of feel it? Do we walk away and feel it? Like, what do you encourage people to do to sort of even just get in the present moment?
Yeah. So if we are with someone at that time and we need a moment and we want to take a pause, we don't have the capacity to be in conversation or to be in the argument or whatever the context is, I would really encourage us to be like, okay, I'm feeling some big things right now. I need to be with them, and remove yourself from that situation so that you can give space for whatever emotion is rising. And this is when, instead of reacting from a place of an emotional state or going straight to ignoring that emotion, actually creating space and intentionally going into the emotion, giving yourself permission to get curious about what's here. Okay, I'm feeling very uncomfortable. There's heat rising in my body. I feel like there's anger rising. I want to clench my fists. I want to stomp my feet. I want to yell out. Can you give yourself permission to express the emotion in a way that is releasing, but also intentionally contained? So we're not freaking out about something, but we're actually being curious about an emotion and giving it space to be heard. And it might just be it needs a quick fire release so that we can, bring ourselves back down and ground ourselves. Or it might be that we need to cry. Whatever that release looks like, it's going to be unique to everyone depending on the situation and the context. But what I'm really encouraging here is that we allow ourselves to have that release. We allow ourselves for the emotion to rise and get curious,
Yeah.
and actually be with that part of ourselves. Okay, sadness, I hear you. What do you need from me right now? Do I need to hold myself? Do I need to, do some somatic touch and release it? How can I support myself in feeling this so that I can come back to a grounded place to then have this conversation?
So good, so good. And this really differs than therapy, because therapy, you're talking about the emotions. You're really getting into the emotion with some really specific trauma informed tools.
Yes, so it's very different to traditional talk therapy, but it does complement talk therapy in that, as a movement and expressive art practitioner, I am bringing in a somatic lens. So I'm presencing the body. We're tracking the body at any one time. How does that feel in your body? What's the loudest part of your body in this? Where is that emotion stored? These kind of inquiry questions where we're actually bringing the body into the picture, because we know that our body stores all of our experiences and is a avenue into feeling our emotions so that we can make sense of them, but also so we don't get necessarily caught up in a talk loop where we're in the story over and over again. We're actually processing it in real time as it rises within our systems, within our bodies.
That's so beautiful. And you wrote a book, BodyWisdom, which I think is so beautiful that through your own experience, through your own relationships and sidestepping your own intuition, you have learned to emerge and be the phoenix for so many.
Thank you. That's so beautiful to hear. Body Wisdom was, it was a 4-year project to be birthed into the world. And yes, I share different parts of my lived experience, but it's a really colorful, vibrant journey. There's lots of illustrations throughout. I've got handwritten notes throughout, and there's over 20 invitations for the reader to take on these practices that I have cultivated over years using body-based therapy, using creative arts, and get curious about how that is in their own body, and then start to feel inspired from my practices that I share and try it out for themselves. So different ways that they can connect with their body and to creatively self-discover.
That's such a beautiful thing. And it gives people permission to create the space for themselves and start to understand. Because I have people in my life and even things that have happened in my own life where you just keep pushing it down, pushing it down. And you know how that goes.
I do. We can become, really, really good at suppressing our emotions and numbing ourselves and keeping ourselves so busy that we don't stop to feel and distracting ourselves. We're great at that. And I guess what Body Wisdom offers is really gentle entry points to being with ourselves in a different way that is more compassionate and more loving and not judging what's coming up, but actually learning ways to support ourselves.
Yes, yes. And so did you learn the movements, the somatic breath? Did you learn that while you were in that relationship, like pieces and parts of that? Or did you emerge out of that relationship and find these tools?
Great question. So I have a long history in community development, um, and actually came back from many years overseas working in different projects on the ground with people. So I always had that, I guess, humanitarian connection, um, and the desire to work with people in that capacity building, empowering way. And I actually was studying movement therapy and dance movement therapy during that relationship. Um, so it was a really interesting parallel between being in this relationship and starting to realize how disconnected I was from my body, and then being a student of this work, and these two worlds sort of colliding, where I was realizing what my body was actually saying underneath all of the anxiety I was feeling in this relationship. Then I, developed the strength to leave that relationship and started piecing myself back together, continuing my studies and continuing to bring in expressive arts therapy and creative arts therapy. So for many years, I was a student, and these practices became my own pillars for my own healing. And now I have developed ways and invitations to support other women who might be going through that as well.
I love it. And visiting your Instagram and your website, you have gatherings, you have things you do online and in person. And I feel like you're such a beacon of light for so many that honestly don't know where to turn. Like, I feel like I've done talk therapy before and others, and I feel like there has to be more because a lot of times that stuff is buried so deep. You have to have ways of getting it out and flushing it out to create more space for love and light.
Yes, absolutely. And I find that, there's so many ways that we can be connected to a new modality or a new practitioner or someone else who can support us in this way, whether that is reading a book or listening to someone on a podcast, and really trusting those signs and those signals if you're resonating with someone or someone's message, to connect and to follow that curiosity, because that is how I found my way into this work and now live this from an embodied place. And it is really beautiful to know that your intuition is guiding you.
I absolutely love it, Cathy. I love the work you're doing. I love that your work has come out of your own need in your own life. I feel like so many, as my friend Veronica would say, so many of our messes hold our messages.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Isn't that beautiful? And so many of the people that have been on the Together We Seek podcast, their gifts have emerged from those crossroads, those situations that thought, the end was coming, but in reality, it was really the beginning.
Yes. And that is, as you said, the phoenix rising again.
I love that. So all your links are below, your website, your YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, but tell us what's on the horizon for you.
Oh, I have a new campaign starting where I'm bringing out some oracle cards to go with the Body Wisdom book, so people can have something that they can hold and be part of their daily practice. I'm starting some new facilitator training and practitioner professional development training in 2026 for other fellow workers in the women wellbeing space that want to learn different ways they can bring in the somatic lens and body therapy and creative arts therapy into their work with clients. And I'm finishing the second book. So there's a few exciting projects on the horizon.
Oh, I love that. Well, you be sure to come visit us when you put out that second book, and I'd love to share your oracle cards inside the community TogetherWeSeek.online. As many healers, light workers, and seekers come together in there and share books and ideas, spiritual locations, and up and coming events. So I'd love to include them in that community too.
Yay. Thanks, JJ. Thank you so much for your love and support.
I love it. Cathy, thank you so much for joining us, and everyone else, thank you so much for continuing to join us and be part of these conversations. And if you feel like Cathy's message has resonated with you, please reach out to her. All her links are below. I feel like her work is so powerful, and I'm excited to be part of it. Thank you, Cathy.
Thank you.